You said you'd come. Now let's hope you're not too late.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Long talks. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it. Long talks. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it. Long talks. Long talks. Talk just a little bit, just for the sake of it. Say what you think of it.
Welcome to Jumanji.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Is It Worth a Tenner review from Wulong Talks. Hi, my name's Jason. I'm the host of the Wulong Talks podcast, as you know. And welcome. If it's your first time here, then welcome to you. We do have a few of these movie reviews that I like to do every now and again. First off, I must say sorry to everybody who's been waiting for reviews and hasn't had anything. I do apologize. Life has just been busy at the moment. Ooh, excuse me. Life has just been really busy at the moment, and it's just been difficult to kind of find the time to put these together. But that said, have been watching lots of movies over the summer, and I've got lots of reviews lined up for you. So if you're still undecided about a couple of the movies that are out in the UK cinemas at the moment, then I will do my best to give you an honest opinion as to whether I think they're worth your hard-earned money or not. So the movie that we'll be reviewing today is The Equalizer 2. This is the action movie starring Denzel Washington. It is the sequel to the original movie, The Equalizer. So for those of you who are familiar with that, then this would be part 2 of that story. And fun fact, this is Denzel Washington's first actual sequel that he's ever done, which is interesting, really. You would think somebody with as many screen credits as he has would have done a sequel somewhere along the line, but nope, this is the first one. So it's interesting, really. Now, is the movie worth a tenner? No, not really, sadly. I'll get into kind of why, and I should say up front that, as we always do with these reviews, they are non-spoiler, so I don't give away any details about too much of the plot or the characters or things that happen within my reviews, because these are designed just for people who haven't seen the movie yet and are maybe undecided as to whether they're going to see it or not. So with that in mind, don't expect any spoilers here. There will be no spoilers at all. I'll just stick to the basics and give you my opinion on it. Now, as said, with this movie, I have to say I kind of came out quite disappointed when I saw it. I'll start with the positives, though. The acting from Denzel Washington is brilliant, as it always is. We have a little thing that we're running on the podcast at the moment, where we're examining sort of the best and worst of Denzel Washington's movies, and it's quite tricky because there isn't really a lot of bad movies on his CV, really. He picks his topics and his projects very well. And he generally is always solid, at the least, in each movie. There's rarely a performance that Denzel gives that you feel is phoned in any way. And I certainly can't say that about his performance here. Again, you see kind of the quality of the actor and the performance within this movie, and you see somebody who is just at such a point in their career now that these things almost come off as easy. He makes it look easy because he has so much talent and so much experience within what he does. And the character that he plays in the movie, Robert McCall, is a complicated character. And as I said, if you're familiar with The Equalizer 1, then you'll probably know a bit about his backstory. But for those that don't know, Robert McCall is basically a retired Marine, and he's also a DIA agent. And since going into retirement, he kind of takes up different tasks for people, I guess is the way to put it. And tries to help out people who, have found themselves in a bind. And with his particular skill set, it's very easy for him to kind of turn around certain situations that the average person would find difficult to do. And, the movie starts off very well, displaying exactly what it is that Robert McCall is about, in that he tracks a young girl who has been kidnapped by her father and is in Turkey. and he manages to track her down and ruthlessly destroy a couple of goons along the way, and really does kind of take them to town. But he has, it reminds me a bit of Liam Neeson's character in Taken, in the sense that, even though they're not necessarily known for these types of roles, because they're both actors who've got the gravitas and the chops to really deliver something deep within the performance. It adds that extra layer of credibility to the character. And Denzel, as said, is phenomenal in this movie. Really, there's no point where you ever feel that he's phoning it in. It's he lives and breathes these characters when he performs them on screen, and you really feel that. Some of the photography in the movie is really breathtaking as well, and there's some really good kind of cinematography and camera work that goes on throughout, and that kind of helps because it does add a bit of life and a bit of vitality to it. The director of this movie, Antoine Fuqua, is a name that you might know from the director of Training Day. He also directed The Magnificent Seven, and he also directed the original Equalizer movie as well. And he's very good at kind of framing certain shots in a way that tell you exactly what's going on, without even having to use too much dialogue or exposition to kind of explain. Some people are very good sort of visual storytellers in terms of what they do with a camera when they're shooting their movies, and Mr. Fuqua is definitely one of those. So you get a real sense of what's going on with the story and with the characters at different times as well. So yeah, that was quite intriguing. But sadly, that's kind of where it ends in terms of the positives, really. So I suppose I may as well get into the negatives, which were, kind of a few, really, and quite fundamental things. Firstly, the plot of the movie really is, for want of a better way of putting it, basic. There really isn't much that kind of happens in the movie, so to speak. Effectively, what the story is that Robert McCall's friend and former colleague is murdered, and so he decides that he's going to investigate her death and find out why this happened, and also kind of look into a case that she was looking into at the time of her death, to try and solve that case as well. But there's really just not a lot that kind of happens with the plot, and to an extent that's not necessarily a bad thing with an action movie, because some of the better examples of the genre have very simple plots, very, very simple plots. So sometimes it pays to kind of keep it simple, but in this case I've kind of felt like the plot didn't really do any justice to the characters that you have here, and the actors that you have at your disposal. Denzel is joined here by Melissa Leo and Pedro Pascal as well, amongst others. And they're really, really good actors. Melissa Leo is really solid. I remember her from the TV series Treme, from the creators of The Wire. And she was superb in that. Pedro Pascal is a guy that I like a lot. I remember seeing him first. Really, I kind of came across him first in Narcos, in the first couple of seasons of Narcos. And again, he's a very kind of charismatic actor. He's got a lot of, there's a lot of screen presence with him and magnetism there. So there's a really, really good actor there. But it just feels like a lot of these guys were kind of wasted, really. Their roles are really basic in the movie. The pacing is a problem with this film as well. I felt like the pace kind of dragged at certain points, and I found myself kind of checking my watch in the cinema to see what time it was, because I was kind of bored with what was going on. It really, really does kind of drag its feet. There's also too many kind of little subplots and things like that going on that distract you from the main story. And the problem with having so many subplots like that is that it exposes the fact that the main plot itself is really not going anywhere fast. There's a subplot involving an elderly gentleman who appears to be a Holocaust survivor who has lost a specific painting that was painted of his sister, and it's the one kind of memory that he had of his sister, and the one memento that he had after he had been separated from his family and put on a train to be taken to a concentration camp. And the painting has resurfaced, but he has no evidence to prove that he owns the painting, and so there's kind of this subplot there surrounding that. And then there's a young kid who lives in the neighborhood with him who is at risk of being kind of drawn into a criminal lifestyle, and so McCall is kind of trying to guide him away from that in his own sort of style. So there's that, and then there's other things going on as well with other characters, and they're all kind of like fine elements on their own, but kind of tacked on to this action movie plot, it just doesn't really work. It just feels too distracting. Like there's too much kind of things sort of going on. There's a plot twist in it that you're frankly going to see coming a mile off. And if you can't see it coming, I'll be disappointed in you and question your action fan credibilities if you couldn't see that plot twist coming. It's pretty damn obvious to you, so there's really no kind of suspense or anything like that surrounding that. So yeah, there you go. And yeah, I mean, they were the kind of main negatives for me. I mean, the action in the movie, I guess, is fine. Although it's done in a way in that kind of typical Hollywood style where there's lots of cuts and, lots of weird camera angles and things like that. And it kind of is a type of action that I'm really just getting frustrated with now. As an action movie fan, I kind of like to see what's going on. And I always feel like with some of these movies, they're, because they're trying to cover up for the use of stuntmen or this or that or the other, they're quickly kind of jump cutting around certain scenarios so that you don't get to fully see what's happening, or they're covering up for a visual effect. And that is a really frustrating thing, as said, for an action movie fan, particularly because, that there was a time when that didn't happen. There was a time when, particularly in Hollywood, they weren't so afraid to kind of show you what was going on and to put things clearly on camera for you. But now we seem to have gone, for a long time we've been in this era where, action movies have to be cut in this fast-paced way to try and add dramatic tension to the scene, when really all you're doing is, just making people like me zone out of the movie, unfortunately. Aside from that, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a very, 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 very disappointing experience for me, really. I was hoping for more. I did enjoy the first Equalizer. I didn't think it was, a phenomenal movie, but there was definitely a lot more to kind of take away. The plot felt better and tighter in the first movie. Probably because it was a bit simpler and there wasn't so many of the subplots and things like that going on. And this one just doesn't seem to do that, unfortunately. It goes off in its own direction and does its own thing and loses half the audience while it's doing it. So a shame. So yeah, unfortunately, I would say to you, no. Keep your tenner in your pocket on this occasion. Wait for it to come out on a streaming service, maybe, and check it out then if you really are keen. But to be honest, if you don't do that, you're really not missing anything. Okay, well, thanks a lot for listening. As said, this is one of a couple of movie reviews that I've done now. So if you want to check out some of the others, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast channels. If you're lucky enough to be listening on SoundCloud, then this should be in a playlist of the other movie reviews that I've done. So you can just hit play on that, and then it will play all of those for you. Elsewhere, as said, you'll be able to find all of these on our podcast channels and also on our website as well, which is www.wulongtalks.com. Okay, well, that's it for me. I hope you guys are all good. I'm going to leave it here, and I'll see you on the next review. Peace. Thanks for listening to us. If you're down with Wulong Talks, show some love by following us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at Wulong Talks. You can also find us online at www.wulongtalks.com or drop us an email at wulongtalkspodcast@gmail.com. We can also be found as part of the BritPodScene collective, and we're also officially E14 endorsed. Search for those hashtags to enjoy more content from us and from other great British podcasters.